My son threw a cake in my face. "Happy birthday, Mom," he whispered, his breath sour with champagne and resentment. The room went silent, frosting slid down my cheek. I am the founder of a company I built with all my might over the years, and this is how my son decided to punish me, because I refused to hire him. "You'd rather hire strangers than your own flesh and blood?" he asked louder, looking at my team, at the partners I'd invited to drink to the new contract. "Ethan," I said, holding the plate with both hands, "we discussed this." "No, you did. You lectured me on responsibility and experience." He brushed frosting off his fingers. "You made me make this decision," I said so quietly that only he heard. "You tried to poach our company's clients. You can't be trusted." He smirked, briefly becoming a boy again. "Everyone poaches, Mom. You just don't like it when it's not your idea." My daughter-in-law came over with napkins, her lips pressed together. "Ethan, stop, please." He raised his glass instead. "To the Iron Lady of Willow Crane Logistics. May she never need help, not even from her own family." A few of the guests laughed, the nervous laugh people use when they want trouble to pass them by, like a storm. I saw my granddaughter watching me from the doorway, her eyes sliding from my face to the floor. I set down a plate and poured water into the kitchen sink, feeling the cool stainless steel on my palms. My hands weren't shaking. It surprised me. How could my own son do this to me? The question echoed through the years: skinned knees, science fairs, a mortgage we could barely pay off. I remembered the first time he'd called me CEO Mom, proud and teasing. Now, Mom felt like something he wanted back. I walked back into the room. "Thanks for coming," I said evenly. "We'll cut a new cake." Ethan chuckled. "Pretend all you want? You'll beg me to join you tomorrow. You need me." I smiled, barely there, toothless. He didn't know I'd already called an emergency board meeting. He didn't know about the security footage from last week or the forensic analysis that would match his fingerprints to personal files he should never have touched. He didn't know that the woman he was trying to embarrass had been preparing for him, patient as winter. The applause never returned. People had settled into polite conversation, their eyes sliding over me like rain on glass. My assistant pressed a cool towel into my hands and whispered that the board could meet in the morning if I wanted. I nodded. The room smelled of buttercream and fear. That evening, I washed the frosting out of my hair over the kitchen sink. The house was quiet, the kind of silence that's more oppressive than comforting. The magnetic calendar on the refrigerator still said celebrate. I turned it face down. By 6 a.m., I'd called Priya, our general counsel, Leonard, the CFO, and Victor, the COO, who'd followed me from our first rented warehouse into everything we'd built since. "Emergency meeting," I said. 9 o'clock sharp, no calls to suppliers before then, no emails that can't be deferred. Priya's breathing on the phone was becoming metronome-like. Leonard cleared his throat. Victor said he was on his way to the office. I dressed like armor, a dark gray suit, flat shoes that wouldn't let me down, my hair pinned back. In the mirror, I saw an older woman with an intent gaze. I didn't look like anyone's victim. As I drove, the sun rose behind the cranes at the port, turning steel into gold for a few defiant minutes. I remembered the first time I saw one move, slow and sure, a neck bending to lift the impossible. I built Willow Crane Logistics on that promise. Even the heavy can be moved, if you're patient and precise. The boardroom smelled like lemon polish. Priya had the projector lit before I sat down. Leonard occupied his usual position at the corner, protective of spreadsheets like they were children. Victor stood by the window, arms crossed, gaze on the trucks flowing in and out of the yard below. They all looked up when I entered. They were used to my pace. They were not used to my silence. "Thank you for coming early," I began. "I'll be direct. Privileged information has left this building, proposals, pricing models, client schedules. The leak is internal. We are going to contain it today." Leonard blinked hard. "How do you know information has left, exactly?" Priya clicked. The screen showed a single page of a proposal. Blackbird, our code name for a promising multi-year contract with a major retailer. Priya zoomed in on a faint line in the footer, almost invisible. Micro watermark. If you print or export, it embeds a unique hash tied to the user and device. I kept my voice even. Our competitor, North Pier Freight, sent us a revised quote last night, a quote that undercut Blackbird's numbers by less than 2% down to the decimals. They attached our page with a taunting note about best practices. They were sloppy. Victor swore under his breath. Leonard set down his pen and folded his hands, knuckles white. "Who touched that file?" he asked, too quickly. "Three people," Priya said. "Me, our proposal lead, Jenna, and someone who used the admin workstation after hours, exporting to a thumb drive at 11:43 p.m. Tuesday." She clicked again. Security footage played. The picture wasn't perfect, but it didn't need to be. The door opened. Ethan walked in, baseball cap low, scanning the room the way my boy once scanned the outfield for a fly ball he wanted to catch. He moved like he belonged there. Leonard leaned back, relief and something like triumph crossing his face. "Your son." "My son," I said, and I let the words sit there, heavy as a pallet. Victor exhaled. "We'll handle it. HR writes him up for trespass. We reset credentials. We keep the matter quiet." "No," I said. "We manage it correctly. North Pier didn't guess those numbers by accident. They were fed. What we do today, child, shapes our next decade, inside the company and outside my family." Priya closed her laptop gently. "I spoke to the state's corporate crime unit at 5. They want a statement, a chain of custody, and a plan. We can cooperate fully, or we can pretend there's nothing to see. But if North Pier has touched our data before, we'll know by lunchtime." Leonard's voice softened. "He's a child, Miriam." "He is 44, I said, "and a father." There are moments in a woman's life when softer words are a luxury. I wasn't carrying any. After the meeting, I stood at the window and watched the trucks nose into lanes like pieces finding their place. My granddaughter Lily once told me our yard looks like a school of fish from above, darting and aligning with some secret shared intention. I wanted that today. Before I called the police, I called Hannah. She picked up on the second ring, voice small. "I'm sorry about last night. I didn't know he was going to do that." "I know you didn't," I said. "Is he there?" She hesitated. "He left before I woke up. Said he needed air." "Did he mention North Pier?" The silence changed shape. "No," she said, too carefully. "Should he have?" "Listen to me," I said. "There's going to be an investigation. There will be consequences. I won't ask you to choose sides. I'm asking you to protect Lily, keep her away from the office for a few days, keep her off social media. I will handle the rest." Her voice steadied. "Do you need anything?" I looked down at the yard again. "Yes," I said. "I need to remember he's still my son. And I need you to remember I'm still his mother." By 10, the detective was in my conference room, a woman with a neat bun and a gaze that missed nothing. Priya handled forms. I handled coffee. We retraced the data's path, the door swipes, the login attempts. The printer logs read like a confession. At noon, my phone vibrated. Ethan. I stared at his name for a long second before picking up. "You've made a mess," I said, before he could begin. He laughed without humor. "A mess? Mom, you embarrassed me. In front of your people. I wanted to show you I could get things done by trespassing, by stealing." "Don't say stealing. You act like you invented hustle, but you protect strangers over your own blood. I brought you a client by handing our work to a competitor." "They aren't a competitor. Not to you, they're a partner in waiting." I closed my eyes. "Who told you that?" He hesitated. "Someone who knows your blind spots?" The room shifted. "Where are you?" "Why? So you can have me arrested, or better, drag me through one of your lectures about ethics?" "I won't lecture you," I said. "I'll tell you a story about the first truck we ever sent out with my name on the paperwork. How I slept on a cot in the office because I couldn't afford for it to fail. How I lifted pallets in my wedding ring and ruined my back because I couldn't afford not to. But you don't want my story. You want my company. I want my share of what I'm owed." "What you're owed?" My voice stayed calm. "By blood? By history." He took a breath. "You don't know everything. You've been surrounded by yes men for too long." "Who?" I asked softly. Name one. He hung up. By two, we had more than suspicion. Priya's team traced a payment to a Shell LLC set up 6 months ago, Crane Advisory Partners. The registered agent was a one-room office in a strip mall between a pawn shop and a travel agency with posters 2 decades old. The bank showed 2 deposits from North Pier Freight for consulting. The signature on the account was Ethan's. That's motive, the detective said. We'll need to bring him in. Not yet, I said. My voice surprised even me. Give me until the end of day. If I can't bring him to you with a story that doesn't blow my family apart, I won't ask for mercy again. The detective looked at me for a long second. You get 3 hours. I didn't go home. I drove to the little diner off Harbor, the one with cracked vinyl seats and lemon meringue pie I've never been able to resist. Ethan used to meet me there when the divorce knotted his throat and he needed to talk without anyone noticing he was crying. I texted him once. We sat across from each other in a booth that had heard our whole lives. He looked older, overnight. He had my father's hands, big, capable, often empty, at the end of dreams that cost more than he had. He watched a waitress pour coffee into my cup and didn't ask for any, like anger could keep him awake. You set up a shell? I said. You took money. Say it. He rubbed his nose with his knuckle. I set up a consulting company. I took a finder's fee. For what? For brokering an introduction, for suggesting efficiencies, for connecting 2 entities that should have worked together long ago. You sold me, I said. Let's not dress it up. He stared at the wall clock, the second hand sprinting in nervous circles. Victor said you'd turn everything into betrayal. He said you'd rather burn it down than share control I didn't move. Victor? Victor said North Pier was our way out. He said you were tired, that you wanted a soft landing. He said if I could prove I brought value, you'd finally see me. The air changed in my lungs. Victor, who learned my tells and covered my gaps, who sent flowers when my sister died and brought soup when I had the flu, who called me chief with just enough humor that I felt like steel and not tired bone. Victor, who watched the trucks like prayer. I thought of last night, his not quite surprised face in the boardroom when we played the footage. Of this morning, his certainty we should keep this quiet. And of 6 months ago, his insistence that we triple the NDA language with proposals because the market was getting cutthroat. How much did they pay you? I asked. Ethan's eyes flinched. 30,000? He shook his head once. I set down my fork. Victor got you that number? He said it was standard. He said if I could get you to consider a merger, there'd be more. What does he have on you? Ethan focused on the sugar packets, lining them up and pushing them apart. A trick of a boy who liked order, whose closets I used to alphabetize because it made him laugh. Debt, he said. The kind you don't read about in glossy magazines. I borrowed from a friend when my app failed, then I borrowed from his friend. Then his friend wanted an interest that sounded like a threat. Victor said he knew a way to keep the roof over our heads. He said you'd forgive me if it helped you. Did you try asking me? Would you have said yes? To a loan? Number? To a plan? Maybe my hands were steady, resting on the table. He used you. And you used me. Both things are true. Do you love me less now? He asked. He didn't ask like a child. He asked like a man who could no longer pretend the world owed him tenderness. No, I said. But I trust you less. It's different. He swallowed. What are you going to do? I'm going to turn on the lights. I slid a document across to him. A printout of the bank ledger, a copy of the Shell LLC filing, a still frame from the security footage. And I'm going to offer you the only mercy I can live with. You walk into the boardroom at 4, you tell the truth, you put Victor in the room with you, you resign from any claim, present or future, to a role at Willow Crane, and you repay every dollar with what? With work, I said. Not for me. For the people you borrowed from, for the people you hurt. You'll rebuild something you can be proud to put your name on. And you'll do it without mine? He looked up, startled. No prison? Do it my way, I said, and I'll ask the detective to focus on the bigger fish. He stared. You'd protect me. I will protect your chance to become better, I said. That's different than saving you. He stared at the clock again. You always were dramatic. You threw a cake at your mother, I said. I'm keeping pace. At 3:57, Ethan walked into the boardroom. He smelled like cigarettes he'd never smoked before. Victor was already there, hands in pockets, calm as a man waiting for a train he knows will be on time. Priya arranged the speakerphone for North Pier's legal counsel and the detective. Leonard shuffled papers without looking up. I kept it simple. Ethan has something to say. He spoke. He didn't cry. He didn't dodge. He named numbers and dates and phrases I wished I'd never taught him. Margin, pipeline, leverage. He said he was ashamed. He said he knew shame wasn't a defense. When he said Victor's name, Victor smiled. Not apologetic. Not surprised. Something else. The look of a man who had measured a room and found it as expected. Victor? I asked. He shrugged. We are in a consolidation phase, Miriam. You taught me that. You just didn't want to admit it was our turn. You brokered payments to my son. I paid for insight. He gave it. You orchestrated an approach to North Pier behind my back. I orchestrated a contingency plan. You've been tired and your board has been restless. I considered the company's long-term stability. You considered your next title, Priya said quietly. He didn't deny it. North Pier's counsel cleared his throat on speaker. To be clear, we were led to believe Mr. Crane was authorized. Priya cut him off with the smoothness of a surgeon. Spare us. Your wire transfers say otherwise, the detective spoke next. Mr. Crane, Mr. Salazar, I advise you to stop talking without counsel. Let me finish, I said. And because I had loved this company longer than I had hated anything, they let me. Here's how this goes, I said. North Pier returns what it took. Every number, every line, every whisper. You apologize in writing and pay a fine that stings. Our counsel has drafted terms. Priya slid a document toward the phone as if paper had weight over wires. Victor, I continued, your employment is terminated for cause, effective immediately. The board will consider clawbacks. Security will escort you out. He opened his mouth to protest. I didn't let him. I built this to outlast me. I did not build it to reward betrayal. Leonard finally spoke. And Ethan? Ethan resigns any claim or future claim to employment or decision-making at Willow Crane. He will be reported as a cooperating witness. If he deviates once, I will be the first to testify. Victor scoffed. You'll prosecute your own son? I will save him the only way I can, by forcing him to live with the truth, I said. Are you still pretending you ever cared about that? For a second, Victor's mask slipped. I saw the man who started with me, who stayed late in dirty shirt sleeves, who loaded boxes when no one was watching. Then the man he'd become settled back over him like a well-worn coat. He straightened his tie. You always thought you could carry everything alone, he said. Don't expect applause for this. I built a company, I said. I'm not asking for applause. Security entered, quiet, steady. Victor didn't fight. He let them take his badge like it was just another trinket he'd borrowed on his way through. When he was gone, the room deflated. Priya sat. Leonard exhaled. Ethan stared at his hands. We finished the paperwork with the detective. We set calls for the next morning. We breathed. That night, I drove home by the long way, past the park where Ethan had learned to ride a bike. I could still see his skinny legs pumping, the way he shouted without looking back, "Don't let go yet!" And me, lying, "I won't," until I did, and he was flying on his own and didn't know it. I didn't sleep. I took the safe deposit key from the inside pocket of my coat and set it on my desk, its little brass head catching streetlight. 6 months earlier, after Ethan first asked for a job and I said no, I had changed the family trust with a hard pen and a notary who didn't blink. I'd moved my voting shares into a vehicle blind to flattery with a clause that would trigger on any attempt to coerce me. financially, digitally, physically. It wasn't revenge, it was prudence. It made me feel like I could breathe again. In the morning, I called Hannah. "I need to ask you something that might feel like betrayal," I said. "I'm listening." "Did Victor ever contact you directly?" She blew out a breath. "Yes, last month. He asked me to encourage Ethan to talk to North Pier's people. He said it would help Miriam land softly." I recorded the call because it felt wrong. "Do you still have it?" "Yes." "Send it to Priya." I braced for her anger, her defense of her husband, her fear. Instead, she said, "I knew something was broken when he didn't wipe the cake off your face." Her voice wobbled. "I love him. I also love our daughter. I can do both." At noon, the recording arrived. Victor's voice was clear, intimate in its confidence. "Hannah, this makes everyone's life easier. Miriam is slowing down. She won't admit it. Think of your mortgage. Think of college for Lily. North Pier takes the risk. We take the reward." He laughed at the end, a friendly, practiced sound that now made my skin crawl. Priya's face, listening beside me, didn't change except for the slight lift of her chin that I'd come to know meant she smelled victory. We put the recording on the afternoon's agenda for North Pier's council. They settled within a day. The press release was sterile and short. No admissions, a reaffirmation of mutual respect in a competitive market. It did not list the 7 figures that moved from their account to ours, or the letter that looked enough like apology to keep my lawyers warm through winter. The board asked me to step down as CEO and remain as chair to steady the market. I said yes. I was ready to move from the driver's seat to the map. Priya became acting CEO. She didn't cry when I handed her the office keys. I didn't cry either. We both looked like women who knew what it meant to trade comfort for control. I invited Ethan to dinner. Not a celebration, a reckoning. He arrived late and sober, which I took as a start. Lily came too and set the table with the seriousness of a surgeon, aligning forks with plates as if the future depended on straight lines. Hannah brought salad in silence. At the table, Ethan didn't meet my eyes. "I got a call from the detective, he said. She said I'm lucky." "You are," I said. He took a breath. "I gave the money back. What I had, the rest?" He stared at his plate. "It's gone." "You'll repay with work," I said. "Not here." I spoke to Miss Garcia at the port. She's running a training program for veterans and second chance hires, building paths into steady jobs. She needs a project manager who can take orders and learn. It's half what you dreamed of earning. It might be twice what you deserve today. You'll learn dispatch. You'll learn compliance. You'll learn the people who make your dinner possible when you order a steak at 9 p.m. and expect it to be there by morning. "You want me to lift pallets." "I want you to build a spine, I said. "That's different," he swallowed. "How long?" "Until you can tell me what you're building without using the word I every third breath," I said. "Until you can show Lily what work looks like without leverage." "Is this your revenge?" "This is my love," I said. "Don't mistake it." He looked at Lily then. She watched him with a face that still believed in magic and also kept a list of disappointments. He straightened his shoulders, like a man who had finally realized he was being measured by someone who mattered. After dinner, I walked them to the door. Hannah squeezed my hand hard enough to hurt. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For not ending him," she said. "For making this harder instead of easier." When they were gone, I sat at the kitchen table and read the letter I had written to myself the day I moved the trust, the one I was only allowed to open if something like this happened. It was short. It said, "You are not the mistake he made. You are the woman who lifted the heavy things. Keep going." The next weeks were movement without spectacle. I conducted exit interviews for people whose loyalty had become convenience. I promoted a dock supervisor who'd been solving problems before anyone else knew they existed. I brought the break room coffee back from good to excellent. Small things matter when empires tremble. The bigger things mattered more. Priya renegotiated 2 contracts with terms so clean you could floss with them. Leonard confessed a weakness for looking away and agreed to retire by spring. We hired an outside firm to audit our systems and teach the new ones like gospel. I slept through the night more than once. That felt like a miracle. Ethan sent texts that were not performances. First shift today, 5 a.m. didn't die. Then, met a guy who cleared bankruptcy and still smiles. Then, learned the difference between a pallet jack and a pallet jack. One is a machine. One is a man who knows the machine better than anyone. I didn't respond to all of them. I didn't need to. In late autumn, rain finally returned to the city, washing dust from leaves that had decided to hold on. I stood under an awning at the port and watched Lily wave from the passenger seat of a yard mule, Miss Garcia's hand firm on the wheel, teaching her how machines obey when you respect them. The air smelled like diesel and fresh beginnings. "Your son's doing better," Miss Garcia said, joining me under the awning. "He is," I said. "He shows up. He asks questions he doesn't like the answers to. That's a start. Thank you for being harder on him than I can be." She smiled. That's what friends are for. When I got home, there was a letter in my mailbox addressed in my son's handwriting. The envelope was ordinary. Inside was a check, the first of many, he wrote, proof that embarrassment isn't the only motivator, that he could put numbers in the right column as well as the wrong one. And there was a note for Lily telling her he was proud of her math test, promising to take her to the museum on Saturday if he finished his shift on time. Conditional love is awful between parents and children. Conditional events are not. Winter crept in. North Pier replaced a few executives and sent us a fruit basket as if that could heal a wound. I sent it to the night shift. They said it tasted like victory and sugar. On the day I officially stepped down as CEO, the board surprised me with a small ceremony that wasn't really a ceremony. There were no speeches. There were photos of our first warehouse, of me in a sweatshirt with grease on the sleeve, of Victor grinning before he learned how to hide his ambitions. There was a cake I cut myself, refusing everyone's help. I pressed frosting to my tongue and let the sweetness remind me that not everything that sticks is humiliation. That evening, I sat in my office alone for the last time. The light over my desk hummed. I emptied the drawers like any other employee. Old pens, a dried-out highlighter, a photograph of Ethan on a bicycle with his front wheel just leaving the ground. On the back, in my handwriting, were 2 words from another life: let go. I locked the door. I walked through the yard. A driver I didn't recognize tipped his cap and said, "Good shift, ma'am." I wished him the same. I meant it. On Sunday, Lily came over to bake. We measured flour and did not discuss leverage. She cracked eggs with the confidence of a person whose hand had been steadied many times before. When the cake rose and cooled, she looked at me with a seriousness that didn't suit her small face. "Grandma," she said, "are you mad at Dad forever?" "I'm cautious with him," I said. "That's different." "Will he get a job with you now that he's learning?" "No," I said, "he will get a life with himself." She nodded like that made sense, not because she understood it yet, but because she trusted I did. We ate cake with our fingers over the kitchen sink, both of us laughing when crumbs fell. It felt like a magic trick only we knew, how to turn something that had been a weapon back into a dessert. Ethan texted late. "I told Ms. Garcia I'd take the holiday shift. Thought you should know. Happy birthday, Mom." Again, no sarcasm, no champagne, just words, plain and heavy in the good way. I set the phone down. I stood by the window. Outside, the street was ordinary. A dog pulling a man toward a patch of grass, a woman wheeling a stroller with one hand while balancing groceries in the other, a teenager practicing a skateboard trick that involved more faith than physics. The world spun without needing my hands on it every second. That felt like grace. If you asked me whether I got my revenge, I would say yes. Not because anyone bled or broke or begged, because the people who counted learned that my love is not the same as my permission, because our company lived to hire more people who prefer rolling up sleeves to rolling the dice, because my son, found work that put him to bed tired and woke him up decent. And if you asked me whether it was worth the cake in my face, I would tell you this: humiliation washes off. The woman I built while it dried did not.
My grandma told me this story. I have many more stories. Subscribe so you don't miss the most interesting things.